It is Thursday. It is September 16th, 2010. Oh, it's Thursday. And this is Day 9 Daily number 181. I don't know why exactly I made that charge up noise. I guess sometimes things just happen when that hand comes off the camera. The Day 9 persona overtakes Sean Plott. And then I just go, ooh. So I'm here. I'm going to do a little bit of daily action. But I need to discuss some awesome news updates. Nada is playing Starcraft 2. I love Nada. I am just like, I love that guy. I seriously have like a total fanboy crush on him. And he was at Gamescom in Germany, and I was too scared to say hi to him. He literally was he was there. I could reach out and I could touch him, but I hid. I actually sat down and crouched behind someone because I was like, oh my god, that's Nada. There he is. Oh, I've watched him since I was a little girl. He is so incredible. He's been working out, so he's all ripped, and when he smiles, his teeth are so white. You kind of whoa, those are white teeth sort of reaction. And now he's playing StarCraft 2, and I am just delighted. I am super duper really excited about that, because there's just so many rumors about how many StarCraft 1 players are being forbid from playing StarCraft 2, and I have no idea about the veracity of any of those claims. But it is exceptionally kick-ass to see that not only is he playing StarCraft 2, but he's going solo. This is all according, just go check it on teamliquid.net. Very excited, because I've only seen his Terran vs. Terran, and it is awesome. Yeah, hoping my teeth will become one day as white as his, and I get this one fixed. That guy right there, that little chip boy. So, there's something else exciting. There's been all the rumors of the patch notes floating around. What changes will they make? What crazy things are in store? And I am very excited if Overlords can vomit creep while moving, because that means that I'm going to rush for lair, get as many Overlords as I can, and just run into his base and be like, and just goop everything up. Be like, good luck making add-ons, Terran. Oh, that's going to be the best feeling in the universe, if that's true. I'll keep my fingers crossed for it. In addition to that, today we are going to watch games of HuK winning! Yay! Because I don't know if you guys have met HuK, but HuK is just a very cool person, and he's just super pleasant and nice, and I don't know, I'm gonna put this way. He strikes the right tone of a competitor, I feel like. You know what I'm talking about? Because I get so tired of all these, South Korean players who, when they win, it's like, alright, championship. You've just won the biggest tournament of your life. You have just lost the most horrible, awful comeback that your opponent made, and it was all your fault. You should have scouted the expansions, and he's just like, I don't like that stoicism. I want to see someone being like, at least a sigh of relief, at least just like, that was a good thing, not, God punished me with letting me win a tournament. It sucks. I hate it. Come on, man, be a little happy. But then don't be, you don't have to be Chalrenge, and you beat some no-name player in Pro League whose mom, just came to the tournament to see his little baby perform, and then Chalrenge wins, and he's like, woo, number one, and he's pouring kerosene on the other kid and lighting him on fire, not only that, but HuK he's like a cool guy, and he plays really well, and he gets a little nervous before games, but he's like, alright, cool, let's do this. He's just totally kick-ass, and for some reason, anytime I watch one of his games on the daily, on this thing I do, he would lose, almost all of them. So I just thought that was violently unfair. So we're going to go ahead and watch some of his games, and we're actually going to watch 3 of his games. Oh my god, I knocked chocolate milk everywhere. Oh my god. I just washed these pants. I don't know if this happens to you, but I've just washed, these I love these pants. And they're just, my whole knee is brown. Blast. March forward. Do the daily. So I tried to, I'm going to try to create a nice little vector for you guys. We're not just going to watch games of HuK winning and go, hooray HuK, hooray HuK. We're going to look at a very specific kind of opening he does. We're going to look at a little bit of its flexibility and perhaps why he does it so frequently. A lot of people try to do these crazy specific openings that have these very clearly defined follow-throughs, but we're going to see a very nice, flexible opening by HuK, and it's more of the little stuff that he does. I'm going to go ahead and turn the health bars on for this particular game. just because his usual little tactics. Gosh, the instant it gets down to 0 hit points, immediately moving around, and his harassment is very, 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 very aggressive. So that's definitely something that we love watching for. A little thing. He shifts his gateway back to 14 and shifts his assimilator back to 15 because he's spending all his money chrono boosting probes, and he did end up spending a little bit of time trying to move out here with this probe early on, so that's fine and that's reasonable. And just so much harassment. Look, already lifting, forcing this barracks to lift because he's blocking it so much. That is just fantastic. And there is the tech lab going down. Another barracks going down. And we'll end up coming back to HuK's base to see exactly what is going to be going on as we turn the sound back on. Hooray! And is it too loud? No, good. Perfect. I was reviewing all these replays beforehand to make sure everything was right as rain. And I ended up muting the sound then. But either way, HuK is continuing to scout. And this is something that I think a lot of players don't do, that they might definitely want to begin considering if they are in HuK's position, which is to just let the probe die. Just to accept that this probe is going to die and to keep moving around the base to do as much damage. Because I just want to state for the record, look at how many SCVs are in the orange life. That is a lot of severely wounded SCVs. This probe is a baller. Now I do want to come back to HuK's base for a brief moment in time here. More little things, spreading his pylons out around his base. He's getting his very fast cybernetics core. He's getting the stalker and the warp gate. He's getting the zealot. While the cybernetics core is building, this is nothing out of the ordinary. Looks like he saved up for the double chrono boost. Fantastic. And here comes a very fast second gateway. Very, very, very quickly. Normally what you see if someone is doing some sort of 4-gate stuff is that they kind of blast down 3 gateways all of a sudden. But we're going to see HuK make a lot of use out of that 1 gateway right off the bat. Just spending as much chrono boost as he can, getting that warp gate up. Probe in here is long dead, and Select is going to be doing something a little unusual. Part of the reason I selected this in the little group of replays we're watching today. Because we really just want to see the flexibility of what HuK is going to do. And here comes the robotics facility. Now, I will say that you can get away with going like, if you cut probes and really use your chrono boost wisely, you could go 3-gate and a robo. A lot of people have been seen to do that. You can't really do anything else, and sometimes you even have trouble getting the pylons out doing that. We're going to see HuK get this nice mix, and look at the unit mix he's getting. Here's this 1 zealot early on to deal with any super pressure. Sometimes people skip the zealot, but you lose to marauder pushes a lot of the time. Getting the sentry out, but then for the most part, all stalkers and getting the observer out. Now, it does happen to be the case that Select is doing all this kind of weird, funky reapering stuff. And it's going to run in here and kill off a lot of probes. Oh no. Oh, many probes falling. You can even see in the unit counting station, 20 probes to 24 SCVs. Not so good. But HuK is just going to get his observer out. And I think people undervalue the idea of just getting observers quickly to check out what's up. And this is what I was talking about in terms of a lot of people do the super siloed builds where they kind of force themselves down one path and then can only respond in a very limited set of ways. But getting this observer out, very, very, very smart. Getting more sentries out as we expand. People have been doing a lot of 1-gate expanding. But this is a touch more safe against the early stuff. But the most important thing is that you respond in the appropriate fashion. Because if you're getting a really fast observer out, you don't just want it to be so that you feel safe. Way too often people are getting the observers just because they want to, okay, what is he doing, roaches? Okay, cool. And then they do the same thing they would have done if he was going Zerglings or Hydralisks or Spire. Then don't get the Observer if you're not going to change. This Observer is kind of expensive to get. This is a 200-100 investment. If we're not going to do anything else with it, we need to make some sort of big change to what our play is. So I like the fact that HuK, again, a little thing. He moved out with the Observer and with the rest of his army. He saw Reapers and knew that there was some sort of barracksing heavy play. Well, actually, hell, he saw the 2 barracks at the very start of the game. He saw those, but with his Observer, he trailed behind with the rest of his army. He left behind small numbers of Stalkers to deal with some sort of counterattack. Just very good, basic RTS play there. Scouting what's up, he sees 4 barracks. And there's always these nice little responses. And look, there's a Twilight Council going down right away. HuK is doing more nice little aggression, trying to pick off what he can, not taking any damage. Tech Lab's such a smart thing to target if you can get away with it, because they have very low hit points. They're one of those guaranteed damages. I think I made the same point in another daily, but I'll do it again here. A lot of times, if you get units in the base, one of the main targets is the SCV. Too often people think that the main reason you do that, or that there's only one reason you do that, is that I want to kill off his economy. I want to be nice and greedy. But there's another really important thing at play. Because SCVs are weak, they're guaranteed damage. If you can be guaranteed to kill off 2 or 3 SCVs, you should do that. A lot of times people will get into the base and they'll target fire the main command center, hoping to kill it off. But there's a chance that it'll get down to 10% life, and then you'll have to retreat, because that's not guaranteed damage. Weaker always means more guaranteed. So if you're in a base with small numbers of units, in order, think about attacking the SCVs, and then about attacking the depots, and then also about attacking these Tech Lab add-ons. That point is especially important for Zerg players who will get in there with Mutalisks, attacking reactors, depots. Very, very good things to hit if you cannot hit the SCVs. So, coming back to the HuK cam, I actually don't like the fact that he pulled these sentries back. You can do the Infina Force Field if you so please. But I'm going to sneak this thing forward a little bit. Rushes for very fast Zealot with leg speed, and we even see the Chrono Boost being saved up for that. I still think that very few people are using Chrono Boost properly, but I would say that this is as proper as any, what HuK is doing right here. We even see, actually I just noticed this, he's being very good about making lots and lots and lots of probes here. Continuing to warp in the units, kind of lets the expansion go up. And then we end up seeing a Templar Archives back here. And this is kind of how you would expect to deal with a big, pure barracks army composition that, as we see, Select is going for right now. And a lot of everything that has been done so far, I want to highlight that it is lots of credit to these 3 early buildings. These early buildings made enough units for HuK to do a little bit of a push here. This Observer allowed him to check to see if he could do the push. And then again, the 2 gateways allowed him to have the units to back that up. We're going to be taking a look at a few more games here in a little bit. Also loving the fact that after he expands here, still not taking the gas yet, just making sure he saves up money to do a lot of Zealots with leg speed. Zealot leg speed did not finish that long ago. For any of you who didn't know this, Zealot leg speed takes really long to build. Way, way long to build. And there are the Templar Archives coming out. And honestly, cost for cost, just looking at the sets of units, most people would probably assume the Terran would win that. I actually personally would. But as we can see, having the force fields there really, really strengthens the Zealots and the Stalkers there to deal lots of damage as well. And HuK, continuing to warp things in from the side, ends up being victorious. Nice little thing, the sentries do get in the front and absorb quite a bit of damage from the Marauders. Something that people don't give those beautiful sentries enough credit for. And I'm just going to slide forward a little bit, because I want to focus more on the early game stages. I want to blast through this replay quite quickly and just look at the general concept of this set of things as his opening, and his big basic decision making. Warping in the Templar very far away, continuing to wall off areas, requesting to pause so he can just appreciate his own awesomeness. Select is doing the big mass barracks style. See, there's the 6 barracks, 5 with Tech Lab, 1 with the reactor, so we can get some Marines in there, deal a little bit of extra damage with those Marauders. Engineering bay planted at the back to wall off, all good stuff. All good stuff. And I think most people will accept the fact that this army mix, Templar, Speed Zealot, some Stalkers, some Sentries, people are aware that that is a good mix to go for. But the problem is that when people want to do it, they just go for it. They don't put a lot of thought into it. For instance, what I really love about the way that HuK went from these 3 core opening buildings to the mid-game is he just instantly threw out a Twilight Council and then kept a very low warp gate count, constantly warping in Zealots, constantly chrono boosting the Zealot with leg speed, and then got a little bit of a delayed Templar. Basically saying that first attack I'm going to defend with all my Zealots and base gateway units, and I'm going to wait for these Templar a little bit later. But he did get the Templar reasonably quickly, and then after the Templar Archive, 4 more gateways get thrown down. people need to see how key that order is. 2 gateways into 3rd gateway and a Zealot leg speed, then the Templar archives, then all the extra gateways. Want to make sure those orders are okay, because we can clearly see that this order allowed HuK to hold off a very key timing push that happens when you are against this sort of 4 barracks aggressive opening. If he was seeing his opponent up against, or if his opponent was doing something like getting a whole bunch of tanks early on, HuK may have not gotten nearly as many Zealots, gotten Templar a little bit faster to get that research, gotten Stalkers and expanded, and then gotten all the gateways up. Nothing wrong with that little rearrangement, and as we're going to see right here, see, HuK looks so safe at this point. Just looks absolutely super safe, and as we can see, that it's pretty damn safe. He's even able to do a little bit of counter-pushing himself. And morphing in the Archons, we're going to see some cool stuff with that in a minute. Pushing out and expanding at the same time. A lot of times you hear me say things like attack and expand at the same time. Select didn't really attack. He moved kind of in the middle of the map and then ended up pulling back, but he still threw down an expansion. Same thing with HuK. He was kind of pushing out this attack, and he threw down an expansion. Anytime you have a bunch of stuff that makes your opponent go, uh-oh, that's probably a good time to expand. I want to note something. See these 6 Stalkers? Have not really been any more Stalkers that have been made for quite some time. Even if we just click on each of these Stalkers, they have a lot of kills because they've been around for quite some time in this game. Literally almost all that HuK is making is Zealots and Templar. That's pretty much it. I'm actually just going to leave this production tab open. Looks like HuK is kind of moving in for a final kill. Here's some Templar being warped in. Let's see if he ends up warping in more Zealots, because that would be pretty cool. The idea of getting some Stalkers at the start, but then just keeping this small number of Stalkers so we can do a lot more aggressive pushing. Yeah, go HuK! Welcome to winning on the Day 9 Daily HuK. And Select is doing as best a micro as he can, but it's very hard when there are storms doing that to your units. And trying to get a few more things out, and looks like Select's going to be able to stay alive here. One thing to note, the Marauders work a lot better in smaller numbers. The smaller the armies are, the better the Marauders do because of that happening. Just the concussive shell, the way it works. In small numbers, it means that every single unit that is there can be effectively slowed down. So this is something that I really am not the biggest fan of, throwing down all these gateways, because we actually can't quite support those if we are constantly building and constantly upgrading there. Looks like HuK's going to be fine. He's going to do the girl-only storm defense. And, you know, we saw, you heard me talk about how there were just a few Stalkers at the start of the game, and as it progressed later when we were down here and I was clicking on things, I said that, wow, he hasn't really made any more Stalkers. It looks like I was referencing time. It looks like I was saying at the start of the game, he's making all Stalkers. And later on in the game, it's all Zealots and Templar, but it's more about army size. It's more about army size. In small numbers, Stalkers are going to be more useful. Stalkers are going to be more useful, and what we're going to see almost certainly is HuK is going to begin going back to building a lot of Zealots and Templar. You see that? There were 5 Zealots and 1 Templar getting warped in. Oh, looks like over here. Oh, by the way, more little good stuff. Checking the edges of the map. Checking the edges of the map. Nifty, nifty, nifty. And I'm just going to look at this production while all this is happening. HuK continuing to make probes. Very awesome. You know, there is a battle going on here, but I mean, the only thing that's really going to happen is maybe storms and maybe some feedbacks. That's about it. Yep, he's getting fed back. Feedback? Fed back? I like fed back. He's getting fed back on the on those medevacs. I'm a little worried the fact that HuK is not actually producing out of these warp gates quite yet. As we can see, there's the possibility to make 7 units. Oh, and there is, yep, Zealots and Templar. The bigger the army gets, the less we're favoring these Stalkers, the more we're favoring the Zealots and Templar. The smaller the army gets, the more we're favoring the Stalkers. Now, I just want you to look at these 3 Archons. This is just general good cool pushing techniques, general good stuff. Notice how these Archons are not dying. I'm actually going to back this up a little more and not have their health selected. I'm going to go over here and select this medevac, because this can be a curse, viewing all the health of everything. Because a lot of times we just don't get the feeling of it. Just look at the Archons. Just look at them. I want you to stare at these Archons constantly, relentlessly marching forward like that one mission in single player. Oh god, I love that hybrid mission. It was so fun. Constantly marching forward. You're noticing how these Marauders are microing like crazy and these Archons are just still coming? And look, they're still coming. They're still trying to get in there. These Marauders that are trying their hardest to micro. As it turns out, in the meantime, it looks like didn't even really do that much damage. Almost brought this to 0 shields, brought this to about, a quarter shield. This Archon's doing just fine. Archons are surprisingly good in these sorts of situations, especially because the medevacs get caught behind. But that was sort of a nice, cool example of his ability to in the late game, HuK's very nice. Army mixes, all that good jazz. I think this is the one I wanted to do. Great. All that good stuff, the army mixes, etc. But in the early game, I just liked the way that opening build order ended up working out for HuK. And I want to look at that a little bit more. And this is, what we're going to start to see here, is something similar to what we did in the last 2 dailies. And the last 2 dailies was all about how awful I was in Zerg vs. Terran and how I really wanted to work more at that matchup. So I did. And the way I did it, especially in number 181, was to try to group all the replays to try to find patterns. HuK, again, another pattern that HuK does, sending out his first probe that builds the pylon. Most people wait for the gateway. Because of HuK's popularity, increasingly more people are just attacking straight away with that early probe, because early probes are awesome. Look, getting in the battle, immediately backing away, go Super HuK. But I want to come back here and briefly focus on this opener that HuK's doing. What all the games we're going to see today are going to involve those early key structures. The 2 gateways and the 1 robo. It's not like just the robo, it is that combination of both. And we're going to see why it lets him do extra things. So the probe did die. It did see that there was a second Marine making, and now there's a tech lab coming out. I'm going to kind of ignore that for a little while. HuK continuing to chrono boost, getting this pylon almost right on time. Yep, there it ends up popping out, getting the chrono boost right away, or excuse me, the warp gate right away, getting the sentry right away. A very fast robotics facility. In the other game, he went 2 gate and then robo. There's actually a pretty reasonable difference between those two, but I'm just going to ignore those for now, because in the other game it was gateway then robo, and this one it's robo then gateway. We're going to just group those together until we're really good and we want to nitpick between those different orders, that transposition, if you are a chess player, which someone messaged me about using that word, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. We're not going to worry too much about the fact that order is transposed. We're just going to worry about the fact that it is robo, gateway, gateway. We're going to think about the cool things that we can do with that. Very fast warp gate. Probe trying to move around. Another Reaper being obnoxious. Back in Select's base, we see that he is going for very fast stim. Very fast expo, getting more barracks out. There's the other barracks out. Oh, looks like he skipped concussive shell. That's kind of an interesting decision. And then the Observer is going to end up slipping out for us. Still same little mix, Fast Sentry, Stalker, and Zealot. That same basic core stuff, but I would assume that, I would actually have thought that more Stalkers would have been coming out instead of Zealots. That's generally what is more typical of this spot, but I will say, if we're worried about a Marauder push, this is the mix we want, because we want to let the Marauders come up, we want a force field, we want to kill it off with the Zealots. That is the one reason I would imagine he would do that, because these positions are really friggin' close. On a map like Xel'Naga Caverns, you're not as worried about that. So cool, look at this. He has the same set of units, he can push out, he can be aggressive. Notice that this Observer, notice the pattern it is taking here. This is so important. It moves down the 2 possible attack lanes up here and down here first. It doesn't suicide towards the main. First, it's going to go check to see if there's any attack coming. Because if there were, this stuff would have to be moved back. These Stalkers would have to be moved back. With the Observer comes aggression. Here moves out all those Stalkers. And again, we see a lot of barracks in the main. This is a very typical way of early expanding, getting many barracks units early on. This looks very much so like the Root gaming style. And then we see HuK throws down a robotics facility as a response. Great, great. That seems completely smart to do. In the other game, we had a whole lot of Marauders and we had a lot of time. So he ended up getting the Zealots with leg speed. In this game, we have a few more Marines, so he's just going to get a Colossus. It's that flexibility. And it looks like he is going to go ahead and go for an expansion in just a moment as well. And the Observer ends up backing up. Select could go for a very early push right now. He does, because he does have Stim, and he's going to wait for that Concussive Shell. Or at least he's going to time it with the Concussive Shell. By the way, Select's timing here is flawless. The Concussive Shell's about to pop out. Totally kick ass. So, the Colossus is just now getting started. Another little thing that we see HuK doing has only made Zealots and Stalkers at the start. One Sentry, that was that first original Sentry. It's going to be used for a Guardian Shield. HuK is going to be very aggressive in chasing this all the way back. And Select is very smart to pull back. Select would lose that if he just straight up fought it. And there is the Colossus coming out. Cool, cool. Notice that all the big stuff that happened occurred after this Observer got there. In the first game, it was throwing down the Twilight Council and expanding. In this game, it was getting the Colossus and expanding. And also in this game, it was the selection to get Zealots and Stalkers mainly to help keep us alive. Select is building a bunker to play a little bit defensively. He's now throwing out a whole bunch of Marauders. I'm actually curious, did he see... No, he didn't actually end up seeing that. But just to throw one thing out there from Select's point of view, for any of you Terran players who are opening up with a lot of Marines and losing to the Colossus, great technique. If you see Colossus, get a Tech Lab add-on at every one of your barracks. If your opponent is going Colossus, he will likely not quite have enough units to come attack you and kill you yet, and Marauders are actually amazing against Colossi in small numbers. Amazingly good. It's very, very easy to snipe some Colossi. In fact, a lot of times, if you're early expanding, you will delight at the fact that someone might be going for a little bit too fast of Robotics Bay. Now, more little stuff that HuK's doing. He's keeping these Colossi pulled back. The Colossi are hanging out in the main. Coincidentally, they can help defend against drops, but I'm not thinking too much about that. More importantly, they are just shielded from running up and getting sniped. Too often there'll be a Colossus sitting right here. The Protoss player just goes la da 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 da. I will make a probe. I will come up here. I will chrono boost this, and then he comes back to his front, and a bunch of Marauders have already sniped off one of his Colossus. It's very, very easy for a bunch of Marauders to be here. You see them stim kill off a Colossus. Very, very dangerous. And as he gets more Colossi, he ends up getting more force fields. Great, great. So we can clearly see how HuK's play has these very smart late-game transitions. The two gates allow him to get enough units to maybe put pressure on, not necessarily, but it does allow him some flexibility. In that first game, we saw that it did a very good job allowing him to be aggressive. In this game, it was more to be defensive and set himself up, so he didn't die to any pressure and could get his expansion up. And again, the Colossi staying up on the high ground, all the units pulled back by the ramp so the Colossi can participate in the battle from the high ground location. And a lot of deathing going on. Mucho deathing. As we can see, Force Field plus Colossus gives big banana grins to Protoss players around the world. Or, of course, general HuK fans. In fact, like the Prime Minister of Canada, he's a big HuK fan. Wants to cheer for him. The GDP of Canada actually went up 25% since HuK has become so popular. People are just constantly migrating to be closer to that Protoss sicko. And now getting more gateways. Everything at this point is pretty reasonable stuff coming out of the Protoss players' front. In the Protoss camp, we're just adding on more gateways. Yes, we're trying to do this good old abuse here. Oh, force field at the bottom of the ramp. And oops, you know, I actually was talking too much about HuK there. I was giving him too much credit for being awesome, not giving enough credit to Select for being awesome. I just want you to see how quickly the Colossus can die. There goes one. And just with a small handful of Marauders, that health is dropping really, really fast. This is especially an issue with lower players who tend to just attack and let their front units hit his front units, which will be Stalkers and Sentries, and then the Colossi are the last thing they kill. Sweeping around the edges to kill off the Colossus is very, very important. Definitely super, super important. And again, you know what? In small numbers, Marauders are really good. And look at this. 5 Marauders against 1 Colossus. Not hard. Not even close. Marauders very one-sidedly demolish that Colossus. And this is just the one little danger. I think HuK would have just smashed this game had he looked at that situation and gone, uh-oh, and then pulled back a bit. But, you know, I'm just liking the way that he is making use of this robotics facility. Now, I am going to be a little greedy with this game. We're going to play it out. We're going to let the rest of it go down. There's Twilight Council again. I'm going to see what interesting things happen with that. I don't think that's absolutely necessary at this point in time to get that Twilight Council. I actually personally think it might have been a little bit better just to stick to gateways and ignore the Twilight Council and get an Expo up, kind of restrict our composition. But it looks like an Immortal coming out nonetheless. Doesn't want to get too many Colossi, because again, Marauders in small numbers, very good against Colossi in small numbers. Select doing the usual thing that he is known for doing, as he is the #1 ranked player in the world. He's just playing really smartly. Is that Zealot leg speed? Yeah, a lot of Chrono Boost going down on that. And look at how watchful he is of this. I want to see, during this battle, if he ends up Chrono Boosting this. Sure, there are good stuff going on here. No Chrono Boost going on, but up until the battle, a lot of Chrono Boost. Very good stuff. 1 Colossus, plus these Immortals, plus all these other units are very good. And here comes Zealot with leg speed. A lot of patience by HuK. When has he moved out to attack? Whenever one of his opponent's attack failed. Why is he moving out to attack now? Because Zealot with leg speed just finished. I would be blown away if HuK expanded here. That would be so baller. And this actually seems like a stupid place to expand, but honestly, this is the easiest place to defend because of the fact that all your units are here. I don't want to say it's the safest, but it's very easy to bounce from here to back there. If you expand here, sure, it might be out of the way for Terran, but if it does get attacked, it is a pain in the ass to get all the way out there to defend. So I actually don't know who's going to win. Dum dum dum. HuK being awesome. Pylon, Pylon. Scout, Scout. Observer. Look at the HuK cam. Total surrounding of the front. There's actually only one little narrow alleyway that you can slip through. And here comes the push, just throwing down behind the Marauders, and I'm very impressed that he threw one here and one here, because, you know, it's kind of funny for me, actually, to see this, because my instinct is just to go F, 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 F. It's kind of like the rhythm you get with moving your hand at a certain speed and just going F click, F click, F click. You just kind of did it mindlessly. But I'm realizing that this building is solid, so if he throws down 2 force fields here, then these Marauders can't move back, and he just saved himself 50 energy by not throwing that force field. That's a little thing, but that is totally kick-ass. And the Immortals get into the front lines, doing the damage. Le damage. So obviously, I would say HuK has an advantage at this point in time. And there's the good game. Great. Now, I do want to watch yet one more game, just to really show the flexibility of this, which is a game between HuK and Last Shadow. And this is one of those benchmarks to say whether or not your build is really, really good, is whether it can withstand getting... by the way, look at this. Wow, pop-up just $! Exclamation point at me. Hey, sending all these guys off into no space. But a good benchmark for whether or not your build is good is if it's flexible, if it can deal with a variety of things. A lot of times you'll have a build that will be amazing against Marine Marauder, right? It'll be great against those styles of play, but will struggle against big mech. You know, a lot of times there's those Dark Templar rush plays, which I know for a fact, because I've experienced it, work very well against the Marine Marauder type things. Makes them delay their attacking for quite some time. But then you get a lot of these meching players who are getting their Raven out extremely quickly, pushing you, and having a good composition of units, and you're relying too much on your cutesy Dark Templar. If it's a good build, you would definitely have enough space to be able to deal with that. Now, we're going to see a little bit of difference in this game. By the way, HuK continuing to be annoying with his probe. I will turn the health bars on. Again, look, attacking. Oh, it's in red light. Oh. Proby still has not really taken any damage. Throwing down a Pylon, because this is a good trick on small maps. Just Chrono Boost some Zealots right at the start. If he doesn't have a good wall-in, he will take severe damage. Canceling the Zealot, actually, just going back to the Cyber Core. And the probe did end up killing off an SCV. So, of course, Last Shadow giving the FFS. Command Center ends up warping into Orbital Command. Going back to HuK Camp. Now, still. You've seen slightly different things every single game. In the first game, we saw the second gateway faster. In the first game, we saw the second gateway faster. In the second game, we saw the Robo a little faster. In this game, there were Zealots coming out before all of them. But still, we have a Stalker coming out, and then, second gateway, and a Sentry. And Sentry is getting thrown down. Cool. And there's the Zealot, the Stalker, and the Sentry to do that good stuff. There's the Probe. Just setting up to do maybe some stuff later. Doesn't have to. And there's the Robotics Facility. There's a big reason why this is just so friggin' stable of a strategy. So we're seeing almost has the Cyber Cores done. I'm going to go ahead and throw out another Zealot and Sentry here. A very scary push coming up by Last Shadow. This is I would call this a very Korean-style push. The one barracks Marauder with Hellions coming out. It would be even more Korean if you went for a starport here. This is just very, very typical, ordinary, good build play. Here, what's going to be coming out? Uh-oh, he's under pressure. In the other games, he's gotten an Observer. Now, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, honestly, he's going to get an Immortal to be able to deal with this. But, you see, first, getting the Stalkers out. Stalkers are good in small numbers. Yeah, sure, the Marauder will have the same. If we go to the Help menu, and then we go to Terran Units, and then we click on the Marauder, it says Strong Against Stalker. Not in very small numbers with a little bit of support. That's very, very deceiving because never in the game do we just have some Stalkers just against some Marauders. The fact that there are 2 gateways worth of Stalker versus 1 barracks versus a Marauder is super, 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 super important. In small numbers, I still almost exclusively recommend the Stalker. Actually, in small numbers, the Marauders just smash Zealots. Zealots can't do anything against that. Now, Last Shadow is doing some very, very, very crazy funkiness to it. Again, Stalkers in small numbers have a lot of versatility early on. Could have gotten a shot off on that Marauder. Done a good bit of damage. A little bit of annoyance here. Uh-oh, getting roasted. Hellions are very good in this situation. Getting a little greedy there. Probably would have backed up there. But hey, now we have Immortal. He has another production cycle of units. He's going to opt for the Zealots because he has some Stalkers and wants to get the about half and half mix. And just watch at how one-sided this ends up looking. The Immortal needs to be controlled very precisely in this spot. It will instinctively go for the wrong unit for God knows whatever reason, but it will target fire the shit out of SCVs. Look at that. It is relentlessly killing that SCV. And then, oh yeah, a bunker that I do 50 damage a shot to. Oh, okay. So a good bit of damage was dealt by those Hellions, but I would say that we're in a little bit better of a shape as HuK, because as we can see, there's exactly 1 Marine here. the good old multi-bunker. And now, the Observer coming out. I'm going to turn off health bars as the drama is done, and I do not want to see lots of data. I want to see the pretty graphical renderings of the game. And we're going to see, again, how does HuK return to the game? Well, he ends up getting the Observer. Sure, he puts a little bit of pressure on, nothing too over-eager. And what does he do? He beautifully, gloriously expands as he is feeling safe. He has sentries here, so he can do the block. Here comes the Observer. Observer being very, very smart. Your instinct is to go charge and move straight in with the Observer, because that's the fastest way to scout everything else. Scout everything out, excuse me. But you do want to take the careful roundabout path so 1 ghost doesn't end up killing you or anything like that. There's the Ghost Academy down. There's the ghost coming out. So it looks like, oh yeah, HuK gonna do the exact same response we saw last game, because he sees a good 1 basing mix here. A lot of weak units, the Marines, that do lots of damage, backed up by the Medivacs. This build transitions very nicely into robotics facilities. So for any of you who hear me use that word transition a lot, it is the idea of, if I want to start doing that thing, based upon what I have now, how easy is it to transition, right? Like to do the next thing. And that's what makes it a smooth transition, if you already have some of the stuff up. For instance, what's a good way to deal with a big Marine Marauder army? People pretty instinctively want to say Zealots with leg speed and Storm, or Colossus. Notice how those are 2 kind of separate things. If I Dark Templar rushed at the start of the game, it's easier for me to transition into Zealots with High Templar, because I already have the Twilight Council done, so I can just easily throw down the Templar Archives for the High Templar. I probably already have some gateways out because I was going DTs at the start. It's easier to transition. In this case, it's a little easier to transition into this Colossus tech because we already have a Robo up. That's why part of the reason is not what's good against this. Oh, the answer is this. A lot of times it's, well, what are you doing to start with? There needs to be some logical progression here, and that's what is so nice about the way HuK is playing, is it has a lot of smooth exits. If we're feeling under pressure, oh no, we can make an Immortal, but largely it's just these 2 gateways. I would honestly say HuK 2, 3, 4 months ago in those early days of beta, he was still doing this 2 Warp Gate Robo stuff, but he was getting the Immortals right off the bat almost always, and pushing to kill. And this is very Last Shadow-esque. Here comes all the SCVs. Oh my goodness. I'm actually going to turn off the health bars for a moment. Oh, there's the good EMP. Last Shadow definitely loves doing a lot of stuff with those SCVs, and I actually have some pretty strong opinions that is a cool way to play. It's very unstable, as we can see. It's kind of not worked out, and HuK still has an expansion, and at the unit counting station, it's about half as many SCVs there, but I still think this is pretty cool. I've talked about that in some other dailies, so I won't re-go into that. But obviously, HuK is at an advantage, and yeah, see, look, Last Shadow didn't expect the Colossus, and it wasn't just any Colossus, it was a Colossus that didn't have range, just a lot of Colossi getting slammed out very, very quickly in order to defend this expansion. Probably would want to get the range if the map were like Metalopolis, but on Steps of War, you already have that ramp at your front, so it's kind of easy. But we love HuK. HuK's awesome. HuK's the man. Yeah. And I really think that a lot of why he's very successful in this matchup is because I've seen him do this 2-gate 1 robo a lot, and the way he plays with it is very smart, very reasonable, and it's just a good, safe way to play. Gosh, I'm like on the verge of sneezing. I cannot believe I haven't sneezed yet. Okay, it's never coming. I'm just going to take some questions now. Whew. All right, cool. So, let's take a question from Varia, who asked if I could do a shout-out to him yesterday. And there's the shout-out, baby. So, Varia says, Protoss is my second race, and I would like to vary my play because I literally only 4-gate. Would you recommend me to train out a single build or just play random builds and see what fits me? I would actually say watch other people play and pick a build if you want to be really serious about it. Depends on what your goal is with a second race. Let's say you're playing it as a second race because you want to get good at it. If you're ever feeling lost, scope down the amount of stuff you're doing to one thing and really drill that one. And I would absolutely recommend doing something similar to like what HuK did in Protoss vs. Terran. 2-gate, 1 robo, it's very flexible. It has a lot of next steps that you can choose to do, and the observer helps you know what is the best next step to choose, and that good stuff. But the best way to improve is to play one matchup on one map, doing one strategy. Focus. You want to drill deep. You don't want to cast a wide net. Depth beats breadth every day of the week. If you are really, really, really good with one strategy, you are really, really, really good. If you're okay at like 10 strategies, you're an okay player at best. So definitely drill deep. Drill deep. Yes. Let's see. Oh, people are asking stuff about the patch notes. I'm just really excited for the patch to come out. I just am really, really, really excited. Because, you know, a lot of people tend to do this like, oh, Blizzard, what a bunch of it. Oh, they need to repatch the game. Oh, Blizzard. Blizzard's evil because I don't like Activision, which is separate from Blizzard. Yeah, I know they trade the same on the, like, Wall Street, but, you know, people make a lot of blind judgments because I'm not going to lie. It's fun to vilify something that is distant and faceless. But Blizzard's done a lot of dramatic-ass shit with their balancing. Has anyone remembered Reign of Chaos to Frozen Throne? Holy crap. Holy crap, that was a huge set of changes. You're being pretty damn bold if you're saying, hey, community, we're throwing away almost the entire way that it used to play, and we're going to completely reinvent it. Have fun, casual players. You know, I mean, the hardcore community, I think, really liked the Frozen Throne, as you could see by the robust Warcraft 3 scene that came out. That's in fact still kicking, you know, quite robustly. But I'm really excited, because I think there's a lot of little things that people don't quite give enough credit for Blizzard for. First of all, I think it's hard to patch a game like this because if they're only listening to us competitive community players, there's the casual people who are just like, and why all of a sudden are you introducing this new unit called the Hydra Roach? You know, like, why is this happening? And it sort of confuses them. But little things like Sentry does 8 damage instead of 6. Or excuse me, 6 damage instead of 8. It's a really subtle way to help people deal with the warp gates. I really, really like that a lot. Oh, I ended up doing the excessive stuff. So let us see here. Okay, so here's a nifty, thrifty question from Watsonator. Doesn't quite have to do with this daily, but the main point of this daily is that HuK's awesome. Yeah. So Watsonator says, Dear Day 9, on maps such as Desert Oasis, I find myself constantly running between my bases in order to defend multiple harassments and cutesy things. I end up running back and forth like an idiot. What are some good army managing techniques on maps with multiple battle fronts? So this is a very, very clear issue on Desert Oasis. And the thing that I would note is Desert Oasis is a very different map from the other maps, so you need to accept the way that it kind of wants you to play. So on that map especially, you really, really want to have some sort of good air control, some good air coverage. Because with air control, you can manage drops well, and you can see where he's moving around. Think Mutalisks and Brood War. The Mutalisks were doing a lot of harassment, would murder drops if the Mutalisks were nearby, and you could always see where the army was moving. Very, very clear example. So, for instance, Protosses, maybe you should start getting a lot of Phoenixes. Oh, surely not. Zergy players, maybe you should start getting a good amount of Nidus Worms to link your armies, link your bases together, or perhaps you should be getting a lot of Mutalisks. Maybe Terran players, maybe you should favor a couple more Vikings. Did you know that Terran versus Zerg on that map, if you just get a butt ton of Vikings, you can be very, very scary? Oh, surely not. So that's one big thing to do. And like, honestly, let me just drill on the Protoss front for a little bit. If you were a player who went like 6 Warp Gate on 2 bases, try going 5 Warp Gate, 1 Stargate on 2 bases. You're going to have a little bit less gateway units, and you're going to have a few more Phoenixes. If this were Delta Quadrant, you'd get murdered, because the Terran would just attack your front. You wouldn't be able to do much with the Phoenixes. But on Desert Oasis, all the amazing, cool new things that you can do. Yes. Gonna take another question. Alright, so Chuck Plar says, Dear Day 9, can you talk a little more about observer movement? Even if I'm sneaky with my observer, Gold and Platinum players always seem to know it's there and automatically scan it and kill it. That is very important. Thank God we did this as the last game, but I mean, really, if we get to a point, let's say we're at this stage in the game, or let's say it's early game, I just love the fact that HuK moved his observer along here and then kind of here. You really want to be skirting with your observers a lot and then sort of skirting back. We can see that the observer is planted right outside the front. What I would honestly say is that a lot of mistake with the observer movement that happens at the lower levels is that people don't exactly know what they're looking for. And it isn't so much a fault of them being dumb. It's kind of just lack of experience. If you've played a ton of games, you kind of say to yourself, I'm worried about... Okay, I'm not worried about these strategies, but I am worried about 6 racks aggression, 2 racks plus ghost aggression, or banshees. Those are the 3 things I'm worried about. So if you like skirt into the base and you see, oh, there's the starport, a lot of times you don't even need to leave the observer in the base anymore. Or especially if your opponent's doing like 6 racks all in style. You get in there, you see the barracks, and then you go, I've seen what I need to, and then you just back to the front of the base again. You leave the base entirely because you don't need to look at that anymore. The bad player will move the observer into the base and keep checking and then keep moving around. What's he doing now? What's he doing now? A factory? Why is he building a factory? Oh, okay, what's he doing? He's getting an add-on for the factory? You know, you want to be at a stage in your play where you can just say, I want to kill him. Or I can kill him if he goes for a factory. And then you see the factory and you go, sweet, he's dead. All I need to worry about now is a counterattack. And you move the observer back. There's a lot of knowledge of knowing what specifically you're looking for with the observer. But again, move it around the edges. Be very careful. Hotkey that observer. Hotkey the observer. I cannot emphasize that enough. Because you really want to be able to move it in there. And then if you like see a Raven, you just want to be able to be like 0-0, back up. I say 0-0 because I'm tired of saying things like 1-1, back up, because everyone's like, cool, I understand that 1 is my control group for something, and then I use nothing except 5, which is my main command center. You want to use your fingers, man. Use all those control groups. I'm gonna take the last question. Little Scuba asks a very key question. Toss vs. Terran is my worst matchup. I find myself losing to early pushes due to me focusing too much on economy. Is this just lack of my micro from small unit composition, or should I cut probes? If this were Brood War, I would say you probably don't want to be cutting them probes. In StarCraft 2, I'm trying to make sure I don't let my assumptions from Brood War become my assumptions for StarCraft 2. Because hell, should you really be cutting probes, maybe it's best to take a fast expansion and make out of one Nexus from probes and not make out of the others so you can get more units. I would say, though, that you can probably get away with making probes because, like, I early expand a ton against Terrans, and I've never had problems with early pushes. I've had close situations, but I've never really had the issues with the early pushes. I would start being very, very particular about when you're building what kinds of units. I'm trying to see the best way to explain that, because this is the way that I have felt, is that in PvT, I was aware that I really needed to worry about these early pushes. And actually, I overcompensated. I was getting a lot more warp gates before I needed to, and now I'm starting to realize that if I early expand, I can get away with 3 warp gates, and I can hold a 4 barracks, stim, marauder, marine push. Like, one base went straight for 4 barracks, marine, marauder, stim, push. But also, what I'm doing is, and this kind of comes back to these games we saw HuK do, what I was doing before was getting a lot of gateways, and then getting the fast robo so I can get the observers to do the usual observer thing, see what he's doing, and also to deal with the banshees. But then I was realizing, but the robo can also make the immortal. Why don't I just stick to more immortaling stuff? So now, instead of early expanding and going these 4 gateways, I've now been starting to go 3 gate, and I always get a kind of fast robo. And if I see him pushing, I get an immortal in there too, and just skip the obs. And I think that's actually a little smarter. But coming back to your question, is that when you're saying you're losing to early pushes, I would really start to question your unit composition. Really start looking at like when you're building those gateways. That's okay. So I have a lot of thoughts going on because I have studied the shit out of the early game PvT to make sure my expo is safe. The first thing that you need to make sure you're doing is that you are constantly macroing out of your gateway. I'm going to assume for now that you are doing a 1 gateway fast expand, like building your Nexus at your expansion at 30, which is pretty typical. You go 1 gate, you get a Zealot, then you get 2 Stalkers, and you expand. Or sometimes you get 1 Stalker, and then you expand. Or sometimes you get a Stalker, a Zealot, and a Sentry, and then you expand. But basically 1 gate expand. And I'm assuming that because you're going to have a lack of units at the start of the game. I'm curious if you're getting a second gas geyser. Because if you're trying to get away with something like early expanding, and you're dealing with something as scary as an early push, you can't really afford to make an extra pylon. Just to be like, I don't want to get food capped, I'm just building another pylon. You need to be very careful when you make those, because you need that money to make the gateway units. I would check things like, are you queuing up probes? Because if you have 2 probes queued at each base, Jesus, that's a Zealot that you could have had right now, or that's a pylon that you could have made right now, so you don't get supply blocked. Are you building a second gas geyser? Because that's 3 probes and 75 minerals that you're just tossing out the window that you don't really need to be spending on that. And after that, I would start to ask yourself, are you getting a lot of gateways? Are you getting 2, 3 gateways? Are you getting 4 gateways? Like, how exactly are you losing? And don't give up, because I just want to say right now, you can early expand PvT and hold off everything. I'm just going to say that now. So, with that in mind, just keep drilling away at it, and what you'll soon start to see is you'll say things like, man, I really need 2 sentries instead of 1. Man, I really need only 1 Zealot, because if I make 2 Zealots, then that's 1 less Stalker I get. What I'm starting to realize is that I just want a lot of Stalkers in the early game. I love them Stalkers, and they have been good to me. So it does take a lot of little things. Cutting probes, I would actually probably put as one of the last steps that you should take to try to stay alive. Because I still think in StarCraft 2 people are not valuing constant unit production enough. Them probes are going to save your ass later in the game. I cannot tell you how many times this has happened to me. And for any of you who haven't been making probes constantly, I want you to check this. Especially when I was trying to get back in the groove of things with Starcraft 2, I was just forgetting SCVs and forgetting probe production. Because, I mean, I was a Zerg player in Brood War, so my constant worker production skill is not nearly as high as other players. I was noticing that I just wasn't making enough of them units. So, or enough of them workers. And I would get into a big battle, and we'd kind of trade, and I would feel a little bit ahead. I would be left with a small army. He'd be left with a small army. We'd kind of retreat our separate ways. And when I was rewatching the replays, I would look at the food, and I would have a little bit bigger of an army, and he would have a couple more SCVs. But in the income tab, he would have like 600 more income than I would. And then as a result, he could be making out of 6 gateways instead of like my 5 or something like that. And he would slowly get more of an advantage. I would feel like big in the army front, and then we'd kind of come back even, and he would start swinging ahead. And because I had really good control, we'd come back to even, and he would start swinging ahead even faster, because in every time he was having more and more and more and more probes. So make those probes. Again, that is a possibility. I'm going to cut probes to help me stay alive. Be very, very careful with it. One of the last techniques I would go for is that, because dem probes is important. Next thing coming up is Fun Day Monday. I'm going to be doing a thing on Sunday, but Fun Day Monday, send me replays of you playing Zerg and winning with no queens. Send it to day9monday@gmail.com. Just a game we're going to play together. You play Zerg with no queens, and send me the replay to day9monday@gmail.com. Definitely going to review those on Monday. Going to check out 2 or 3 of the juicy ones. Because we just want to, first of all, have some fun, because we're playing this game because it's a game, because we want to have fun with it. But also, we want to see maybe someone's going to do something that's going to make us go, huh, that is maybe an interesting way to play Zerg that I didn't think about. So, hey, that's it. Let's wrap it up the dailies for the week. See you Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Bye, everybody. day9monday@gmail.com. That is the email address that has it going on. Going to stop the recording in just a bit.